We've got another story of Chicago corruption. The Chicago public city school system is under scrutiny for spending millions of dollars on extravagant trips, limo rides, and expensive hotels. All of this is going on, by the way, while the Chicago public city school system has an over $700 million budget deficit, and the city of Chicago's budget deficit is over $1 billion. And here's what no one wants to say. It all starts at the head. This just didn't start at CPS. This started with the mayor, Brandon Johnson. Remember this exchange a little over a year ago when Brandon Johnson was going to London on a business trip?
I'm going to London to attract business to Chicago. Okay? I'm going to London to attract business in Chicago.
But are you going to the game?
Hold on a second, because you already know the answer to that. But I just want to make sure that you do the people of Chicago service. Because I have to be very honest with you. It's pretty jacked up the way you frame that.
Right.
That is. It is. It's disrespectful and condescending that the black man is going to London for a game. It's disrespectful. It is. And people get away with that too much.
They do.
The governor went to Tokyo. The governor went to Tokyo to attract business. The mayor of Chicago is going to London to attract business, and while I'm there, I'm going to root for the Chicago Bears.
What's that old saying? As the head goes, so goes the body. So here's the real question. If CPS is spending money this recklessly right now with a $700 million budget deficit, what happens when the money is completely gone? How can we trust these individuals to run the third largest school district in the country? Let's break it down. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button.
Financial problems are piling up at Chicago Public Schools, facing a growing budget deficit and more cuts from the federal government. The teachers union is now calling on the state to step up and help.
WGN's political reporter Tamon Bradley joining us with details. Tamon.
Good evening. It's been talked about for years. CPS finances are a mess. There's no more hiding it. The district is on the clock to close its staggering deficit. The impact of CPS's $734 million budget deficit is starting to be felt. Worried that they might not see their negotiated retro pay until the fall, the Chicago Teachers Union is speaking out.
They must pass a budget that isn't going to shortchange our students.
Last month, the district laid off 161 employees and says it will not fill more than 200 positions. Although the financial picture is murky, the teachers say they won't tolerate waiting for CPS to make good on their new contract.
We're not going back to Pedro Martinez's false promises that we have a significant and appropriate amount of spending to fund our contract.
CTU leadership is calling on the state legislature to raise taxes on millionaires and billionaires, but raising the income tax would require everyone pay more. Illinois has a flat tax system.
We are here today calling on Governor J.B. Pritzker to immediately schedule an emergency session in Springfield, Illinois, to address the needs of our people, whether it's health care, higher ed, Medicaid, K through 12 education. These cuts are severe as they are perverse, and we won't let it stand.
Mayor Johnson also sees the state as part of the solution.
There's no secret across the state of Illinois that there is still yet to be a fully funded school district. It just doesn't exist in Illinois right now.
So you hear all of that information. This sounds like a really dire situation, correct? The school district has a $734 million budget deficit. They're asking for money from Springfield, from Cook County, any place that they can get this money because they believe education is important, as they should, as they are teachers, and they want to make sure that all of these priorities are being funded appropriately. So the question becomes, do we see any mismanagement going on within the school district where we could possibly recoup some money?
Luxury hotels and limo rides, all paid for by taxpayers. A scathing report from the Chicago Public Schools Inspector General questions millions of dollars spent on travel by city educators.
Well, questionable and even exorbitant. That's how the Inspector General for Chicago Public Schools describes the district's spending on travel.
A scathing report dropped overnight detailing trips that investigators say taxpayers would find excessive.
At 4:30, luxury hotels, limo rides, all on the taxpayers' dime. A new report from the Chicago Public Schools Inspector General raises some serious questions about millions of dollars in travel expenses by district staff.
You know, it would be funny if it weren't so sad. Right in the middle of a $734 million budget deficit, you have accusations that teachers and that CPS staff are taking exorbitant trips. They get limo rides, expensive hotels. You know, when I travel for my business, for my day job, there's a cap on how much money I can spend on airfare, on hotel, on car rentals. I have to turn all of those expenses in. They have to be pre-approved. There are a lot of checks and balances in place, but there doesn't seem to be that same sense of urgency when they're spending money while at the same time asking you and I as taxpayers to give them more of our money. Take a look at how bad this situation really is.
Well, investigators say this all began with a complaint about a $20,000 staff trip to Egypt that was never approved. The CPS Inspector General didn't mince words in his report, calling much of what you're about to hear travel abuse. Some examples: an educator spent $945 a night on a hotel for a Las Vegas conference booked last minute. A professional development trip to South Africa included a wildlife tour that didn't appear to have any educational value, and a principal racked up thousands of dollars in bills going to 7 out-of-state conferences in 2 years. Investigators also found that some people charged CPS for limo rides to the airport. Others would attend conferences in places like Las Vegas or Disney World, but not attend similar events held in Chicago. The Inspector General's team says CPS's review of travel requests focused too much on proper paperwork instead of analyzing if a trip was worth the cost. The report called that CPS travel expense process broken and its bookkeeping deficient. Investigators discovered records were being kept on 7 different databases that couldn't easily be linked. They also found CPS had no written spending limits on international trips and that travel agencies had no budget restrictions. District travel spending more than doubled between 2019 and 2024. And keep in mind that CPS announced earlier this year that it faced a more than $700 million budget hole.
And that's why people hate these public schools. That's why people don't trust Democratic politicians. Let's just go ahead and say it. $945 a night on a hotel stay, going to Egypt and South Africa, and avoiding those very conferences that are here locally in Chicago, going to Florida and Las Vegas and taking limo rides. Again, this is how the taxpayers' money is being spent. And it's not just happening in Chicago. This is how Democrats spend taxpayers' money. And that's why they're getting this pushback about raising taxes and raising fees. We can't trust you with the money that you're spending right now, and you're trying to convince us that you need more money, and then this type of report comes out. Again, it's completely ridiculous. But again, as the head goes, so goes the body.
The report found the amount spent on district travel between 2019 and 2024 more than doubled, and most of that $7.7 million last school year was for out-of-town employee professional development seminars or overnight student outings. Well, investigators say many of these trips were booked without pre-approvals. Hotels and flights exceeded cost limits, and activities scheduled often had minimal value to students. Some people charged CPS for limo rides to the airport. Others would expense conferences in places like Las Vegas or Disney World, but not attend similar events in Chicago.
Limo rides to the airport for a teacher. You know what? If you can't afford to take the limo ride and pay for it yourself, then you should not be expensing it to the taxpayer. The first time that you ride in a limo should be at your own cost. But again, this is an ideology. This is the way that people on the far left think. Rules for thee, but none for me. I can take your tax money and I can do whatever I want with it. And if I need some money, all I have to do is come back to you and tell you, hey, I need some more money. And then we as taxpayers are supposed to just give it willingly because we love the children. No, you need to be held accountable for what it is that you are doing with the money that you already have. And this is just yet another example of just such gross waste, just gratuitous spending. And we as taxpayers are not going to take it anymore.
Reached out to the people here at district headquarters for a comment. Have not heard back at this hour. We should note that the report says CPS was made aware of these findings earlier this year.
The soaring spending levels were fueled in part by lack of federal pandemic relief money and the district's, quote, severely deficient travel expense procedures. The IG found CPS had few written spending limits and travel agencies weren't following budget guidelines.
The district was not consistently examining, are these trips worth it for CPS?
So a CPS statement released just this morning emphasizes the district's, quote, commitment to fiscal responsibility. Now, we have also reached out to the Chicago Teachers Union about all of this. We have yet to hear back. So the big question, Marie, now is what happens now? So we know that there is a travel freeze in effect for all employees. And the IG actually said they recommended disciplinary action for some staffers, but all of that would have to come directly from the district.
Interesting that you hear that one comment that refers to pandemic spending, that they're no longer getting these pandemic-related funds from Washington, D.C. I've said this in other videos about Brandon Johnson and his fiscal mismanagement of the city of Chicago. He has a proposed $16.6 billion budget. Pre-pandemic, the budget for the city of Chicago was $10 billion. That additional $6 billion is not coming back. That was pandemic-related funding. You need to go back to your pre-pandemic spending levels because you're no longer getting that additional $6 billion. Same thing with the schools. They were getting additional money and they were just going out and just spending it lavishly. They don't care. It's the taxpayers' money. They don't care. They'll take a trip. Of course, they're going to take a trip to Egypt or to South Africa as opposed to going someplace right around the corner because they're not paying for it. You and I are paying for it as taxpayers. So no, we're not going to approve you continuing to raise taxes when you are not being fiscally responsible with the budget that you already have. We can't trust these people anymore. They have shown that they are not trustworthy. We need to vote these individuals out. We need to start electing individuals that have some scintilla of business acumen. If they just understand just simple revenue and expenses, we're allowing ideologically driven people to drive our cities and our states and by extension our country over the cliff. We can't stand for it anymore. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, jump in the comments section. Let's have this conversation. I think it's time that we as Americans stand up and tell the far left wing of the Democratic Party no more. I'll catch you in the next one.